Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Following much speculation about the guest list, embattled Congressman Charles Rangel hosted many of the state's top Democrats at his birthday bash this week. And though he has said he does not want to discuss his pending ethics trial, the dean of the New York delegation can't seem to stop pleading his case in public. Here to discuss Rangel's ethics woes and much more are the four members of our Reporters Roundtable: Capitol Tonight anchor Liz Benjamin, Brian Lehrer of WNYC Radio, Daily News columnist and WWRL host Errol Louis, and Michael Barbaro of the New York Times. Thank you for joining us. So let's start off with Congressman Rangel's birthday party. Liz, in the end, did it end up being a happy birthday for him?
He looked like he enjoyed himself a lot. I think, you know, he really got almost the trifecta. I mean, almost everyone, I think, not so much in terms of the House delegation, but otherwise he got Cuomo, he got Schumer, he got Kirsten Gillibrand, he got Mayor Bloomberg. I mean, he had all of these people there, people who did not want to commit previously. Now, they didn't want to talk, some of them, afterwards, particularly the Attorney General. However, they spoke when they were there, and because it was open to the press, which it usually is not, all of those people had their words written down for, you know, to be used later. And we saw that the Republicans immediately came out with an attack ad, and they used footage of Kirsten Gillibrand kissing Charlie Rangel, and that's not, of course.
And Rick Lazio has also tried to capitalize on Andrew Cuomo's appearance. Is this going to have any traction, Michael?
I don't know about regardless of the traction in campaigns. I mean, what the long-term problem for Charlie Rangel is that every event that he's a part of and every new milestone in his career is going to be, you know, just absorbed with lots of speculation about who's going to show up and will he be eventually forced out of the Congress or will he be censored? And just the charges are very serious against him, and it must have been very painful, even though everyone showed up at that party, to have to go through the public spectacle of everyone agonizing and analyzing who was going to show up. And that's the problem with the state of limbo that he's in, and it's going to continue for a while.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to hurt those who went to the party. I mean, they were in a difficult position because here Rangel seems tainted at the moment, but he's innocent until proven guilty. And he is the dean of politics in New York, certainly of the House delegation in New York, having an 80th birthday party, maybe his last in office or in public life. And to not go to the 80th birthday party, I think they're going to be forgiven for that. And I don't think the public's going to notice it very much.
Yeah, that is the difference. It was a personal celebration. I mean, it was wrapped as a political fundraiser.
It was a fundraiser.
They paid for political dollars.
But I mean, I think that it was a sign of personal respect. I mean, the people who went, many of whom would rather have been somewhere else, because honestly, these kind of events, it's routine for people to just sweep in and sweep out. Leave the check, send the check, maybe send somebody
like
else.
Carolyn Maloney.
Send a couple of aides to go and have a good time or something, and everybody came specifically, and they made clear that it was personal.
But when you mention, I mean, there's some of the top Democrats like Andrew Cuomo, Kirsten Gillibrand, Charles Schumer, they're not really having a popularity issue.
Nah, but for Andrew Cuomo, I thought Andrew Cuomo could be problematic. If for no one else, that it could be problematic for him, just because he's running on this massive ethics platform, you know, and then he made a point, as you noted in this ad that Rick Lazio said, this web ad that Rick Lazio, you know, and then also, notably, the day after, Andrew Cuomo releases his own campaign ad, and he's sitting on, you know, $23.6 million, so he can afford to do it, talking about how he's going to clean up Albany and clean up corruption, ethics, and Albany's a mess. And then they said, oh, it was all serendipitous, the timing. I mean, really?
It is interesting to see the competing ads side by side. The Lazio ad, which says, you know, ethical business as usual by Andrew Cuomo, invoking Rangel. The Cuomo ad only points to Albany and says, I'm going to come in and clean up Albany. It doesn't say anything about Washington, so he obviously wants the attention to go in that direction.
Well, and he's running for governor.
Are people going to think, because he went to this birthday fundraiser for Rangel, that he's not serious about cleaning up Albany? My guess is they're not going to think so too much.
You know, I think the real news of the week was that Rick Lazio's campaign is actually clever and has some scrappy, political operatives. I mean, I watched those ads and thought this campaign may be something of a dud, but these are pretty good ads.
They had 3 of them. I mean, I think they were a little bit like over the top. They did do the Andrew one, which was like Runaway. They did it to the tune of Runaway.
And they're also only on the internet, so how many people are actually flocking to Rick Lazio's
frankly,
website?
It's overkill. I mean, unless it's been clearly established, unless people know something that I haven't seen, and I've been watching this thing for a while now, I don't see what Charlie Rangel has done in the position that he's in, where he's facing these charges and he hasn't gone through the whole process yet, as the kind of thing where you must not be in the room with him. Yeah. He's unclean. He's unclean. You can't shake hands with him. I just don't think it rises to that level. I don't think anybody...
But the Republicans are trying to make it that way. That's the whole problem, is that the way that it looks is being sort of framed by the Republicans with these ads, and then people sort of feed into it, like Mike Arcuri, who gives his money back because he's so terrified. He's running against...
And the 5 AG candidates.
The further you get from New York, the more serious and significant these issues are. In New York, people know and love Charlie Rangel.
And then did his speech on the House floor, that 40-minute speech, did that kind of play into the narrative that Republicans are trying to establish?
I think that speech was, I mean, we have a different view of this speech, I think, but I think that he really wanted, he was clearly angry. He clearly was like, I'm not going away. You guys are disloyal to me. You're letting me swing in the wind. I mean, this was some of the exact verbiage that he used. And I'm now going to co-opt your whole message. It was supposed to be about jobs and helping the states with $26 billion, et cetera, and instead it turned into the Charlie Rangel show.
By the way, I think one of the AG candidates did show up. I was told that Schneiderman was there. Now, they share a district.
You were there, Michael. Who did you see?
I was there too. I didn't see that.
That would make a lot of sense.
I want to go back to what Liz just said. I mean, I think that speech is handing some bullets over to Republicans. I mean, you can take any 1 or 2 or 3 snippets from that speech, especially the "come get me," you know, sort of.
And I read in the Washington Post the next day that during that speech, Republicans had their campaigns start sending out robocalls while he was in the middle of his speech to some of them.
You know, this is the thing I can't get my hands around. Who do they send those calls to? In what district is Charlie Rangel's ethics problem going to make anything happen? I can't figure it out.
It's
I mean,
about the
maybe
base.
1 or 2 districts upstate.
In the midterms last time, the powerful narrative was about a corrupt Republican establishment, about lobbyists who'd gotten too close to those in office in Washington. And that could very easily swing around to become a Democratic problem.
I agree. The Democrats ran on draining the swamp. And, you know, it's just another piece of red meat for the base to make them angrier at the Democrats and even to swing voters. I mean, Obama and the Democrats are losing a lot of swing voter independence, it seems like. And if this is going to add one more piece of negative imagery to the Democratic Congress as a whole, because the Republicans want to nationalize the midterm elections and make it about Democratic failure and Democratic corruption, this adds another piece.
Let's talk, we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to switch gears, talk about term limits. The Charter Revision Commission decided on Wednesday that it wants to put the issue of term limits before voters, whether they want to go back to 2 terms or remain with 3 terms. The mayor the next day didn't want to really talk about the issue at all. Errol, why is he, after switching the law in 2008, now wanting to avoid it?
I think there may be a level of cynicism here that may have condensed and occurred to the mayor, that he has been so inconsistent and has so little credibility on this issue that he decided to do the bare minimum. In order to call off in order to put some paper, some window dressing around what he did last year. He said that he would have a charter commission. He said that it would reconsider term limits. That has been accomplished, and I don't think he wants anything else to do with the issue. And I don't think he takes it very seriously.
But also, the way this is headed now, a promise that he made is basically being broken. He promised Ron Lehrer, whose support was necessary to get this done.
He wanted a one-time extension.
Ron Lehrer, hold on. Ron Lehrer did not want to, specifically, decided not to serve on this commission. And the agreement that you bring up, Errol, is actually interesting because it was because of Ron Lehrer. No, I agree. But Ron Lehrer, I think, wanted to be outside this operation so he can fight it.
The point I'm trying to make, though, is there was supposed to be a referendum, and the referendum was supposed to be about whether or not the current lawmakers who passed the change to term limits should basically get booted. That's not even going to be really a possibility given the grandfather clause that we're now discussing. So the people who are protected who changed the rules, and the whole point of the referendum was that the mayor was giving voters in New York a chance to undo what they all did. That's not going to happen
And
now.
there was also something, they were trying to float this compromise that seemed slightly bizarre, that they were going to allow lawmakers who are currently in their 2nd term to finish and run for a 3rd term. Those who were in their 1st term would only be allowed to serve 2 terms. I mean, was that basically to reward those who actually voted for and passed the extension?
I don't know why. I thought this commission was more independent of the legislators in the city council than that. This really baffles me as to why they're making it so convoluted. And I think it's going to leave some of the voters in a difficult position because there may be a lot of New York voters who want to restore the 2-term limit. and so would be inclined to vote for it, but they're going to think that it's not tough enough because it lets the current incumbents off the hook, and it just muddles the issue.
Well, and the wording, right? I mean, how are you going to word the whole thing so as to be confusing to people or not confusing to people? And it's going to be right in the bottom of the ballot if anybody gets there.
Well, aren't there electronic machines from November?
Yeah,
That's
but the
right.
drop-off is, yes, but
So
the drop-off is still, I think people, it's the same, it's true, right?
Are you going to be forced to vote for it? Vote on it? Because it's screen by screen,
I
right?
don't know.
No, I think you can miss
Walk
it.
away.
I think one of the
away.
problems is going to be that it may be hard to find.
Right.
We're just, you know, beginning to talk about how confusing these new voting machines might be the first time out.
Well, let's be honest, this is not gay marriage here. This is like, do you want to change term limits back to, I mean, I don't see people getting particularly excited about this issue.
Well, the people who care will definitely know about it, they'll come out and they'll vote on it, but it's not going to be any kind of a broad referendum.
I agree with, I mean, the issue is actually so narrow. It's really just between a two-term limit and a three-term limit,
But when you poll it, people say that they feel very strongly about term limits. I agree that it's not in a visceral, emotional reaction that like gay marriage, but when you ask people, it's a very overwhelming majority of people who say that they support it.
Am I wrong that the issue is only between the status quo, which is a three-term limit,
Yeah, it's not doing away with them altogether, right?
We're not being given the option of doing away with term limits altogether.
Right. Fiala complained about that. There's also, though, this sort of companion question, which is whether or not the city council will be barred from making rules that apply to them in their then existing term, which is actually very important. Although, based on everything we've seen, I don't know why they couldn't just vote that out the way they overruled term limits by vote. We have a structural problem with how we handle it.
And Christine Quinn is opposed to the point that you just brought up. She says that the council should have more legislative authority, not less. We only have about a minute or so left. I wanted to quickly, if we can, just talk about the mosque. President Obama is addressing religious freedom tonight. Liz, do you expect much in terms of support for the mosque near Ground Zero?
The first time he took a pass, I mean, through a spokesman, I think Robert Gibbs said that this was a local issue that the White House didn't want to get involved in. Now it's become, I mean, a conflagration. The issue is not going away clearly, but it's given the midterms and how emotional this particular issue is. If he says something sort of generic about religious freedom and the importance, if he mentions the words mosque and Ground Zero very specifically, and I support it, I will be surprised.
I'll give you the final word on this.
I would be surprised too. I mean, everybody from Anthony Weiner to the president is logically taking a pass on something that could incense the kind of people they definitely need to support them right now.
All right, we are out of time. Thank you for coming in tonight. It's time for a break. I'll be back with some viewer mail and a preview of Monday night's program. Stay with us.